The information provided on the Forever Young Show by its host or sponsors is for educational and personal alternatives. Statements have not been established by the Food and Drug Administration. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Welcome to the Forever Young Radio Show. Over the past 2 decades, we have had the opportunity to serve and help so many listeners. We do that by bringing on respected educators in all fields of health and wellness. We pride ourselves on keeping consumers in the know about our ever-changing healthcare system and ways to support the body. Each week, with the help of our special guests and experts, we have one goal in mind, and that's to ensure every listener has the most up-to-date information on ways to support all aspects of health. Now, here's your host.
It's the first time you've caught our show, whether it be on the traditional radio dial, Sirius XM, or any of our wonderful podcast platforms. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for finding us. We appreciate our listeners who tune in each and every week and have for well over 2 decades. Very important program. We are here each and every week to inform and educate you all about good quality science-based information, trends that are going on, ones you should incorporate, maybe ones you should avoid. And again, learning more about your own health journey and different things you can work in. We have a very special show. This is our 500th episode on the podcast. I'm really excited about that and been able to have such a great opportunity to educate you guys and to be able to share this wonderful information, not only with the wonderful sponsors and guests that we bring on this program, but even the wonderful co-hosts that have been joining me for goodness, well over 2 decades. Today, I have a very special co-host that is Corinna Bellizzi. Again, just a wonderful powerhouse, has multiple platforms where she communicates with consumers on her podcast, works for a wonderful company, Orlo Nutrition. She's also educated us on the benefits of polar lipids and algae. And Corinna, I'm so grateful that you could be with me today to introduce a phenomenal first-time guest, thanks to you. So welcome to the show.
Wow, 500 episodes, Kelly. I think we deserve a round of applause just for you right now. No,
Well,
I just love your show. Everything that you've been doing with it for the entire history is just incredible. And I'm so honored to be here to introduce the amazing founder and CTO of Vexa Technologies, and that's Professor Isaac Berzin. He was named one of the 100 most influential people by Time magazine for his work in sustainability and climate change. Isaac is an affiliate scientist at MIT, where he worked on a NASA-sponsored project which developed bioreactors for the International Space Station. So truly space-age technologies. His innovative work in green fuel technologies has won numerous awards, including the Frost & Sullivan Award, the Platts Global Energy Award, and American Society of Competitiveness. He is coming off the heels of an event in Davos that is all about sustainability, so I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that today. He also holds a PhD in chemical engineering and biotechnology from Ben Gurion University of the Negev, Israel. So fantastic show planned for us all today, and I'm just so thrilled that we get to finally have this conversation.
Absolutely. Again, without further ado, Isaac, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Wonderful. Happy to be here, and I already feel the energies. Oh my God.
There's a lot. I blame it on Orlo Nutrition. It gives me natural energy. I don't drink coffee, so here you have it. But again, your story is just fascinating. You started working with algae from a greener energy source first, and possibly even in its role to sequester carbon in space. But what first drew you to algae for its nutritive content those years ago?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. So I fell in love with algae again during my years at MIT as a young scientist. Only to realize the important role algae play in creating life on this planet and the key role they should play in sustaining life on this planet. Algae are, you can think about them as single cellular plants. They're absolutely cute. They come in many shapes and forms and colors. Some of them have a little mustache. It's called flagella. They swim around. And like all other plants, they think that CO2 is a gourmet food. They fix it using photosynthesis into an organic matter, and then further metabolite it to all things that we call essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, etc. But unlike staple crops, for example, which are mostly agricultural waste, in microalgae there's no waste because there's no stems, there's no leaves, there's no roots, right? They grow by cell division, so there's no waste. It's 100% basket of nutrition. So it fascinated me. It really did. And then, my kids used to ask me, Dad, what's the connection between algae and life? It's like remote from life. I said, really? So I'll tell you top secret 3 fun facts. Ready?
Yes.
One is most of the oxygen that we breathe right now is not coming from the rainforests. It's actually coming from microalgae in the oceans. The second fun fact is what we call petroleum. It used to be something, right? Organic material. It was not dinosaurs. It was mostly microalgae. And omega-3s do not come from the fish. I mean, we get it from the fish, but that's a second-hand omega-3. They are actually synthesized by microalgae, and then the fish just accumulate them up the food chain. So it is connected to life. It's the key of life. Nevertheless, it doesn't have enough PR, right? So thank God there are amazing shows like this so we can promote algae and put them in the right place of order. So yeah, I was looking for ways to cultivate microalgae in a sustainable way in a meaningful market. And again, the first market I was looking at was energy. And when we were cultivating these microalgae, there was something in the oil that bothered it or disturbed it from being a great fit for fuel. Because when you're looking for fuel, you want the C16 chains, okay, fat chains. And this was like something in the middle. This something in the middle was omega-3. So
Wow.
once we realized that we have very special omega-3, we also realized that the form is very unique. You know, if you look at the second-hand omega-3, okay, fish or krill, they come in different forms. One of them is triglycerides, mostly from fish, and another form is phospholipids, which comes from mostly krill. But these guys have something unique, which was called glycolipids, polar molecule with a sugar head that makes it polar. And there was even no analytical method to measure it. So I have to develop the analytical method to measure it. And then we thought, is it good? Is it bad? It's very unusual.
Right.
And then we started looking into what it actually does for you. And that's kind of the history of what got us here. But I'll tell you what I learned over 20 years of cultivating algae all over the world, really, literally all over the world. It's a lot like marriage because you need to keep algae happy all day, every day. And this is really, really hard. Providing them the optimal growth conditions. I'll give you an example: light quantity, light quality, light and dark cycles, pH, temperature. It's a basket of conditions that if you maintain them and provide them, happy wife, happy life, same with algae. So what they do for you, they over produce compounds of interest. For example, omega-3. Now, why is that important? Okay, because if you have a very high concentration in the core algae, you can do very little processing steps to get into a marketable product. Okay, because unfortunately, that specific algae we grow, it's called Nanocoropsis. It's beautiful and amazing, but it's not digestible. So if you just eat the algae, you will not get the benefits of the omega-3. It will go out just the way it came in. And so you have to extract the oil. And extracting the oil needs to be done gently to maintain this polar structure.
And when we come back from the break, Isaac, I'd love to be able to explore that a little bit more. Listeners, you can learn more at Forever Young Radio. We'll be right back after the break.
Have you ever wondered whether you're getting enough omega-3s? At Orlo, we're so confident you'll see results with our better absorbed bioactive omega-3s. We're footing the bill to prove it with third-party test results. Orlo's Tested by You limited edition program is a first-of-its-kind initiative to help track your omega-3 progress before and after supplementation. Tested by You subscribers will receive 2 third-party tests with their first 6-month subscription, an additional value worth $100. You'll receive 1 test with your first shipment to establish your pre-Orlo baseline, and 1 after your 4th month to show improvement over time. Visit orlonutrition.com, that's ORLO nutrition.com, and get your Tested by You subscription today. While subscribers receive 15% off every day, listeners of this show will receive an exclusive discount with the code TESTFOREVER, all uppercase. Learn more at orlonutrition.com, that's ORLO nutrition.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, we are getting a special treat today, being joined by Isaac, just a wonderful individual, wonderful educator. And again, Professor Isaac Berzin is joining us today for our 500th episode. But I'm also being joined by my co-host, Corinna Bellizzi, the host of Nutrition Without Compromise. Boy, just in the intro, I've already learned like 10 things that I didn't know about. And I know that Isaac is a wonderful husband because he said, happy wife, happy life. What do you say, Corinna?
Well, I can echo that, but at the same time, I just think that they're learning why algae is so freaking cool. And one of the keys that I like to remind people of is just that this is the world's first plant. I mean, the fact that life started there is really, I think, what makes it so fascinating at this rudimentary level. And Isaac just gave us a very, I would say, descriptive explanation of why that's the case. But it's just an exciting little greener energy source for all of us. I'm thrilled to have Isaac here. And I personally want to dig in a little bit more into how we grow this algae for its omega-3 content. I think you've gone into that a bit here, but polar lipids may still really confuse people. How is this as unique as it is, and why is this so new? Like, why isn't this readily available everywhere else?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Corinna. So, sometimes the middleman creates value. I'll give you an example. If you want to drink your milk with coffee, so you want to put milk, you don't want to put a cow in your coffee, right? So the cow created value in a way, you don't do, okay. But in our case, since we get it from the second hand, I'm not only talking about the potential contamination that you have in marine life, which mirrors the situation of the oceans, okay? I'm just talking about the molecular structure. We do not get an upgrade. Actually, we get a downgrade, and I'll explain why. Think about your stomach as a bucket, and it's full of liquids. And then if you put oil and water, everybody have tried it, I'm sure, you can see easily that the oil is creating a layer on top. So if absorption from the stomach into the blood system happens on the sides of this bucket, right? These are the sides of your stomach. There's only like a ring around this layer that's actively working for mass transfer. Nevertheless, if you mix polar lipids with oil, the polar structure creates like an emulsion. So it's spread all over you. There's no two layers. It's all over the place. And then all of the sides of your stomach are actively playing a role in mass transfer, in getting those omega-3 molecules into your bloodstream. That's only the first barrier. You need to cross the barrier from the stomach to the blood. Then there's another barrier to cross from the blood to the organs. And then molecular structure plays a role. It's not a diffusion process. They have, cell walls have gates, and these are just keys to enter the cells. So it's a very efficient way on, I would say, biochemical level, and also on a kind of practical, physical, chemical level. Okay. So in the end, why am I saying such a long story? In the end, it doesn't matter what you swallow. What matters is what's making impact on your body, what's going into your bloodstream, and from the bloodstream to your tissues, and which tissues, etc. And there are phenomenal works that are looking into the brain-blood barrier, and there's a whole world about, digestion and nutrition are complicated worlds. They're nonlinear. So sometimes getting close to the original first-hand prime producer basically brings with it all the nutritional levels that you lose if you take it down the food chain. Okay, so in this case, I think the art is to respect nature, to respect the prime producer of these key molecules, and also to tailor technology around them, to keep them happy and productive and enhance the metabolic pathways that create those molecules. And then when you extract it, to be also gentle and respectful and minimize the impact. You want to be as close as possible to a whole food rather than a processed food. And that's a big difference. You think about quality in omega-3 that coming from fish, many times it's a concentrated form, right? Why? Because a lot of the other things you really don't want to swallow. So you want a concentrated form of omega-3. In our case, because it's coming from algae oil, it's a basket of nutrition. You think only the omega-3 there's a lot of wonderful things out there. So actually, if you get it into a marketable concentration, that's it. You don't have to separate any garbage or any toxic things, because there aren't any. So there are a lot of advantages of this, going to the source.
Yeah, but a lot of companies are not going to the source. And I think that's where the big gap has been created out there. And again, realizing all of the things that you're looking at and not just trying to bring a product to market, I mean, is phenomenal. I think if you wouldn't mind, Isaac, could you just explain to our listeners what makes Orlo growing technology so different than maybe other things and products that are out there?
It's a evolutionary step. Think about it. When you take algae from fish, what are you? A hunter-gatherer,
Yeah.
right? You just grab the fish and squeeze the oil out of it. Great. What we're doing is we're taking this microalgae cultivation even beyond agriculture. It's technology, okay? And in order to provide all these wonderful growth conditions, you have to control them. So, if you're growing algae with sunlight, you do not control the sunlight. You do not control the composition of light. You cannot control day and night, right? So we made a brave step into integrating an algae production facility with a geothermal power plant. It was never done before, and the rationale was as follows. When you want to grow algae with optimal light conditions, you can use LED technology, which in the last 10 years made huge steps forward. So you want to tailor the light composition, the light wavelengths, the light colors to what the algae prefers, and also the intensity. And then if you grow algae in kind of a vessel, when the algae are close to the light source, they see a lot of light. But algae, if you look at it, it's like green water, they shed the light. So in the middle of this bucket, okay, you have low light, you have darkness. So if you're an algae and this bucket is mixed, what do you feel? You feel light when you're close to the edge, and then you feel dark. So you feel light and dark cycles. So that's another dimension of light. It's not only the composition, it's not only the intensity, it's the light and dark cycle. It's called photomodulation. And then you need to keep the algae happy from thermal perspective. So you need access to cooling water. And from that perspective, this geothermal power plant was a one-stop shop. Why? Because you have clean and cost-effective energy, geothermal energy, okay, 24/7. You have this specific power plant. It's about 20 minutes away from Reykjavik. It's one of the largest power plants in the world. They basically in Iceland, what they do, they drill few kilometers down the ground, and they get steam coming out of them. We have to burn fuels to create steam to make electricity. Their steam is coming from the ground because the ground is very close to the lava layers. And then they operate as turbines. But once the steam is cooled a little bit, it's still very hot. What do they do with it? They heat water. So if you take a shower in Reykjavik, there's a high likelihood that this hot water came from that power plant. So it's the open public pools, and they even have a private ocean beach where they pour this hot water into so you can swim in the ocean. And so this power plant has a huge pipe of cold water, 6 centigrade, coming in, and the same pipe of hot water, about 87 degrees centigrade, coming out. So we're integrated into this waste streams of cold water and hot water. So I can keep any algae happy in optimal temperature, and I do not waste any water because it's a flow through. Okay. And another thing is when they get the steam from the ground, a small portion of it is CO2. So they concentrate it, and then before they met us, they were just injecting it back into the ground or releasing it to the atmosphere. And we told them, why would you ever do this? It's gourmet food. Come on. So it's really a one-stop shop to keep algae happy. But there was a technology gap. The reason it was not done before, there was no technology that enabled this integration. And without this integration, with all due respect, you're out of the range of cost-effective production. I mean, with all due respect, primary, great, but you cannot punish your customers. They're not going to pay $100 for a pill, right?
No.
On a daily basis. So it should be all within reason.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so this was the kind of the key that we had to unlock.
Yeah, and I've been able to see some of those photos. I mean, you've been able to share it with me, Corinna. When I saw you at Supply Side, you showed me a number of these pictures and the pools and everything going on, and it was just phenomenal. And when we come back from the break, I know we have some additional questions that you had for Isaac, but I want our listeners to go and check out this website and learn a little bit more, not only about the technology, but to see some of the algae, which is goodness, it's so bright, it's so green. You can do that at Orlo Nutrition. Again, that's orlonutrition.com. There you can not only read about everything I shared with you, make sure you keep that page because there's a lot of phenomenal articles that are coming out of there. Really great information on how we can apply algae into our day-to-day life and utilize it in a way that we're actually feeling it and knowing that we're getting in proper levels. If you'd like to learn more, say you're working out and you can't remember orlonutrition.com, we put this all on our weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com so you can go and follow up for the next 2 weeks. Stick with us when we come back from the break with our special friends at Orlo Nutrition.
Give your heart health and your immune system a boost with omega-3s and spirulina from the world's most sustainable grower in the world, Orlo Nutrition. Orlo grows algae in pure, sustainable abundance in their first-of-its-kind aquaculture plant house in Iceland. Their products are more bioavailable. This means you get all the benefits without fishy burps or nasty aftertaste. Orlo Nutrition's unique polar omega structure boasts 3 times the amount of absorption over fish or other algae oils. Orlo is the future of nutrition, omega-3s and immune-boosting micronutrients that provide all the benefits without damaging Earth's ecosystems so people and planet can thrive. Visit orlonutrition.com today. That's ORLOnutrition.com. Get an exclusive 20% discount at orlonutrition.com when using the code FOREVER at checkout. Orlo Nutrition, because nutrition shouldn't be an either-or. That's ORLOnutrition.com.
Thank you again for joining us for Forever Young radio show. I am a co-host today, Corinna Bellizzi, joined by Isaac Berzin, professor and amazing PhD in the space of algae and technology. We are talking now about carbon neutrality as it relates to Orlo Nutrition's growing of algae for human consumption and its amazing abilities overall. Now, many brands, generally speaking, they talk about carbon neutrality. They seek to meet what these global goals by the UN have been for running more sustainable business practices, those so-called Sustainable Development Goals. What makes Orlo truly carbon neutral and even potentially carbon negative?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Corinna. And I'm an engineer, so I don't understand word, I understand numbers. Okay, so what we did is we teamed with Cambridge University, DTI, the Danish Technological Institute, and MATIS is the National Lab of Iceland. They conducted something called life cycle analysis, which actually measures your carbon footprint, and they measure everything. The energy that went into building the building, the energy went into fertilizers, the energy that you're using to keep the algae happy, everything, okay? They concluded that the cultivation of microalgae in Iceland, the way we do it in the integration with the geothermal power plant, is carbon negative. That's huge. I don't know any other agricultural activity that's carbon negative. Where does coming emissions come from? Yes, algae eat CO2. And yes, roughly for 1 ton of algae, they ate 2 tons of CO2, roughly 1.8 to be precise. Okay, that's all true. But in order to mix them, to lit them, to harvest them, you invested energy. This energy came with a carbon toll. Also, half of their body is carbon, great, from the CO2, wonderful. But what about the other half? It's fertilizers. So fertilizers are coming with a tremendous carbon footprint. So if you look at it all in all, I don't know of any other agricultural activity that's carbon neutral. And the key was twofold. Number one, all the thermal management to keep algae happy thermally is done with waste streams. So we don't have chillers. We don't have heaters, okay? The second thing is all the energy we use is very, very clean. Geothermal energy is one of the lowest energies from the point of view of carbon footprint, okay? We even get the power directly from the source, directly from the power plant, so we don't even have grid losses on that. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is we use mined open pit fertilizers. So nothing that was made synthetically from natural gas, for example, okay? So altogether, it brought us to this amazing platform of carbon actually negativity. We don't say carbon negative because people think it's a negative thing. Carbon negative is actually a positive thing. But we measure sustainability in many ways. This is one of them. Carbon footprint is a major one. I agree, totally. But think about the land footprint. This is vertical farming of microalgae. We have a lot of surface of light and algae, which you need to cultivate algae, but it's folded together vertically. Okay, if I had to unfold it and create like an open pond, this would be like maybe one of the largest open ponds in the world, but it's not. It's folded like origami. Okay, and it's so the footprint is very small, and actually it's lava. It's lava filled. Nothing grows there anyway. Okay, so we do not compete with food production on land. What about water? When you look at an open pond, for example, and that's the way most algae are cultivated, you don't realize that it's a horrific camel. It drinks a lot of water. Why? Because water evaporation, mainly in warm places, is about 2 meters of water per year. So if you have a pond, 2 meters of water, after 1 year, it's dry completely. People say, okay, so we use brackish water. Yes, very, very true. I can use brackish water, but what evaporates is H2O, it's water. The salt stays. So if I do not compensate with fresh water, the salinity is going to go through the roof. The algae are going to die. So even that, even if you use brackish water, you have to compensate for evaporation with fresh water. And fresh water is a finite resource. So I think it's a breakthrough. So we use less than 1% of the land and less than 1% of the water compared to traditional way of cultivate microalgae. And because we're actually sitting on a large, this whole area sits above a water aquifer, it's a waste zero zone. We're not allowed to any waste, any. Okay, if we have any like a bathroom or something, we have to collect it and then truck it out of the site. Okay,
Wow.
so it almost forced us to have no waste. So we recycle everything, even the water, we recycle it. So having this coming together in such a nice way is something we're very proud of. And I think it's a choice, right? Sustainable life is something that you want to choose. Like you want to choose to be a decent person. You want to choose a lot of things that you choose, right? It's a choice. You don't have to, but you want to. So that's something that we care about, and we're very happy and proud.
Well, I want to point out to the audience too that at orlonutrition.com you can actually see a counter on the top right corner of the screen that shows you how many fish have not been harvested in order to put this omega-3 into the world, and also the CO2 equivalency that we've also saved from having produced. So not only are we carbon neutral, but we're not going out there with major fishing vessels to go capture fish and emitting a bunch of carbon at the same time. So this just creates a really nice way for consumers to see their impact when they make their daily purchases at orlonutrition.com. Thank you so much for that explanation, Isaac. It was really, I think, thought-provoking and getting us all to think about how we could do things differently. Isaac, one of the other things, we've spent a lot of time now talking about Nanochloropsis, this amazing little algae species that produces our omega-3, which is really cutting edge, has 3 times the absorption of omega-3s that are traditional and typical stuff out there. I really would like to bridge into this conversation about spirulina. We're growing spirulina now at scale. So what can you tell us about what makes this spirulina in particular so unique and different than the stuff that is grown in open ponds?
Wonderful. So the first difference you feel is when you smell it and taste it. Because between us girls, spirulina is disgusting. Okay, if you did not try it, go for it. Okay, good luck. It's something sometimes I say you should not be called spirulina. You should close your nose. So spirulina, that's a better name. Okay, so you do not have any of that. It has no taste and no smell, which is a miracle on its own. And you know why? Because we keep the temperature optimal. Spirulina is between 60 to 70% protein. It's like meat. And if it's not kept in optimal temperatures, just like meat or dairy product, it's going to stink. So what's the big surprise that it's stinking? Of course it stinks. So we maintain temperature and we avoid this typical sensory experience, okay? The second thing has to do with what I mentioned before of keeping algae happy. So giving algae in optimal growth conditions enable natural metabolic pathways to overproduce compounds of interest. So with Nanochloropsis, it's EPA. With spirulina is vitamin B12 in an active form, and I'll explain. When you get regular spirulina and you analyze the B12 of it, it's mostly pseudo form, so your body cannot use it. It's actually hurting you because it sits on the receptors of B12 and blocking them. It's like an anti-nutrient in a way. And there's a minority of active and majority of pseudo, so totally no benefits of B12. But when you look at the Icelandic ultraspirulina, the one we cultivate in Iceland, you're going to see tremendous amounts of active form. 10 times more than the pseudo form because we measure both. So the net active is huge, so huge that it's similar to beef. And then you look at the iron, similar to beef. Bioavailable, even more than beef, 6.5 more times more bioavailable than beef. And the proteins, the essential amino acids, are all there. So it's the first food in the world that has nutritional parity to beef. Now, why is that important? Because it supports this trend of going from animal-based nutrition to plant-based nutrition. And many times you can find the proteins, the plant-based protein, that's fine. But then when you start looking into other things that beef has, beef is a very effective way to introduce vitamin B12 to our diets. So having I think it's very complementary to this trend. And I think people can safely make a choice. And again, we're not forcing anyone to do anything, but you have to have you want to be able to make the moral or environmental choice without paying a price of your health and nutrition, without compromising it. So this is a very nice way. And then you can choose eating one less hamburger a week or whatever you want. But if you introduce this ingredient into your food, you can get everything. And I'll give you an example of a way of introduction. So we have this bakery in Iceland, in Reykjavik. It's called Bread & Co. And they're adding Icelandic spirulina into their bread. Then we took this bread to the national lab, Matís, food lab of Iceland. They measured both forms of vitamin B12 and did the math of the net value, the net active, so the active minus pseudo. Okay? And the amount is so big in the bread that it triggered and allowed FDA and EFSA B12 claims. If you can provide more than 20% of the daily value per serving, by FDA and EFSA, you're allowed to say the following: a natural source of active B12, and then you can pick and choose for 4 or 5 functional claims. For example, B12 supports a normal immune system, okay? Etc. So they're very powerful claims that connect nutrition to almost to health. And then we took this bread to a company it's a carbon certifier. They did the life cycle analysis on the bread. And because this ingredient, this Icelandic ultraspirulina, came with a negative carbon footprint, the bread is carbon neutral. It's crazy. So now you have this bread that looks like any other bread. You cannot tell me which is a spirulina bread if it's not written on it. No smell, no taste. It's brown like you will never believe. But you can measure tangible, nutritional, and environmental. Again, it's not my numbers. These are external experts that measured. And it's amazing. It shows you how easy it is to integrate these dimensions into your food. No one suffers. No one suffers from eating that bread. Actually, it's amazing bread, one of their best sellers. And that's an example. Yeah, you can do things differently.
That's wonderful. And I love that you use the methylcobalamin form because I have MTHFR. And again, if you're wanting to incorporate any type of B12, you really want to go to the methylcobalamin form. So I have learned so much. If I had 10% of your brain, Professor Isaac Berzin, I would be doing pretty good. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show today, sharing everything about this in such an eloquent way so consumers can learn a lot more on why they need to look for how their algae is being sourced, how's it being cultivated, and the technology behind it. Again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. It was fun.
All right, listeners, will stick with us. We have one more segment. Again, you can learn more at orlonutrition.com. We'll share more when we come back from the break. Stay with us.
Feeling stressed and unfocused lately? You might be deficient in DHA, an essential omega-3. DHA makes up half the fat in your brain and eyes, and without it, entire health systems crumble. Thankfully, there's an easy solution. Orlo Nutrition provides active omega-3s in the polar lipid form for up to 3 times better absorption than fish oil. You'll get all the benefits of the omega-3's EPA and DHA in a smaller pill without that fishy burp. These active omegas get straight to work supporting your healthy focus, attention, vision, and so much more. Orlo is the future of nutrition. Algae-based omega-3s and nutrition solutions that are better absorbed for better efficacy and that are better for the planet. Visit orlonutrition.com today. That's ORLO nutrition.com. Orlo Nutrition, because nutrition shouldn't be an either or.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, hope you're enjoying our 500th episode. And again, that's just since podcast came out, Corinna. We've been here 26 years. I would be very surprised to see how many episodes that we have done in 26 years. People can do the math. We do 2 hours a week. So quite a lot of shows. And I've been so blessed to do shows with you throughout that time. And again, that you brought in one of Time's most, top 100 influential people, MIT graduate, worked with NASA. I mean, you never tend to shock me, the amount of quality of people that you bring on this program. I want to thank you for that, Corinna.
Oh, well, thank you. And frankly, he's one of my favorites. I've heard him called rock star in the algae world, and I think that's a good description.
I
He is
believe it.
able to boil it down to the essentials and keep us intrigued, which is just something that is so helpful because these are complicated topics. So if he's able to help us understand it a little better, then that means that my job is easier and I can create content to help people understand this amazing algae too.
100%. As we encourage people to kind of look at what they're getting for when they're not only getting their omega-3s and going to a different source and the benefits of algae. I mean, really, what does it mean for the consumers, Corinna, to get a more bioactive form?
Well, really, it means that you are what you absorb as opposed to you are what you eat. You could be
Yeah.
spending quite a lot on your monthly supplements that you take every day and essentially throwing that or a good chunk of it into the garbage if you don't absorb it. And the fact is, with our algae, because of the fact that we're growing it in these pristine ways and minimally processing it, it's super fresh. It doesn't smell. It doesn't have a negative repeat or fishy burp that comes with it. And because it's better absorbed, that's also part of the reason that it doesn't burp back on people. They don't run into digestive distress. I mean, you know me, I've worked for 20 years in the space of omega-3s, which is sometimes hard for me to believe. A chunk of that was in fish oil, and I have never been able to get my husband to take a fish oil every day because it sends him to the bathroom. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how fresh it is, doesn't matter the source. If it's fish oil, that's what it does to him. Now he can take a polar lipid omega-3. He absorbs it. He gets the benefit. It doesn't give him digestive distress. And that's only within the four walls of my home. I've heard the same story from so many. There was
Yeah.
one individual early in us bringing this to market that shared that he had taken fish oils many times over the years, even at high doses, at the suggestion of his partner, who is an optometrist. And he still suffered from dry eyes, like the dry eyes never went away. But within weeks of taking our product, his dry eyes were gone.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that people who have a tough time assimilating a traditional fish oil or a traditional algae oil, guess what? They can realize a benefit. That's what absorption does when you're really looking at the rudimentary basics of it. You mentioned earlier having this issue with your MTHFR, right? So you really have an issue absorbing your B vitamins. And so you need them in the most bioavailable form, or you're going to have a tough time. You can't just take a synthetic over the counter pill and expect it to do anything. And so, even as we bridge into talking about spirulina, the fact that it can provide the direct source of these key nutrients that are so critical for human health, I mean, that's where we stand out. That's what makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, look, I've taken fish omega-3s for years. And then when I found out about Orlo Nutrition, I've been using the algae forms, the EPA, DHA. Again, there's different varieties I know we'll probably talk about. But I'll tell you, it's like less pills. I don't have the burp back. And even some of the cleanest oils out there that are touted to be the best, 30 minutes later, I'm burping up that lemon emulsion, that is is essentially covering things. So I love that consumers that before wouldn't take omega-3s. I'm constantly hearing back from our listeners saying, are you sure this is all I have to take? Because it's less. You have to take less pills. They're smaller pills. I mean, I think it's very viable for a consumer to work in every day.
Yeah, and it's easy. So the fact that, we've packaged this in this beautiful glass bottle, which can safely be left on your counter, the product will not oxidize. It's, almost a display piece. It looks like it's a conversation piece. Our intention in doing that was to get people to remember to take it every day because an omega-3 fat soluble vitamin of these EPA and DHA, which are those specific omega-3 fats that get to work in your cells and help your body optimally function, getting them every day is ideal. If you are getting most of your omegas from fish, you should consume fish 2 to 3 times a week. Well, lately, what do we worry about when we hear about fish? We worry about microplastics. We worry about toxins. We also worry about the fact that most of it is now farmed. And guess what? Farmed fish are fed soy and corn. What are soy and corn? They produce omega-6s. So the fish that you're eating that you pick up at the grocery store that you may think is wild because it says Atlantic salmon or Norwegian salmon is farmed and fed these things that make them produce more omega-6s and omega-3s. So in many, many ways, omega-3s from fish as a consumptive, as a food, are no longer as viable. We need to look to supplementation to ensure we're getting enough of these daily and getting something that is both responsible, that is clean, that you won't have a negative burp back from, I think is just, it's a no-brainer. We're doing a couple things to ensure that we can prove it to customers. Like we are providing a test, an omega-3 index test as a part of our Tested by You campaign. So if they want to give it a try, they can sign up for Tested by You. They'll receive a free Omega Quant test with their first shipment and another one after 4 months of solid supplementation so that they can test their before Orla levels and after 4 months. They can make adjustments if they're really low on their omega-3 index. They might need to take more than 2 small pills a day, and they can always reach out to us for specific recommendations when it comes to that. So we're going to keep at this, and I ultimately want to make sure that we're providing the tools and resources that our user base can reach for the health that they know they deserve and want.
That's excellent. And, I just wanted to ask you one more important question, especially since you originally came from the space of, the fish and the fish oil industry. But if we know that polar lipids are better absorbed, which we've clearly spoken about, people can learn more at Orlo Nutrition as well. Why aren't fish oil manufacturers like making products with polar lipids in it? Why are we not seeing that?
The form that exists in a fish oil after you spin the fish in a centrifuge to remove the oil, that's in the triglyceride form. The polar lipids tend to exist within the cell walls. So in things like fish roe, right? So salmon roe would have a good level of polar lipids to it. But the problem is that when you go to purify that oil, you break the bonds. So it goes from being in its polar form to an esterified oil or a triglyceride form, and you're back where you started with the fish body oils, right? And so it just isn't viable for that reason. It would have to be grown in a very protected environment, the way that we're growing our algae. And so that's just why you don't see it broadly available. I had hoped that Isaac would touch on that, but I come from the world of fish, so I think he leans back on me to do that part.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it goes back to his first segment where he was talking about the oils and the separation and all that stuff, which was phenomenal the way that he explained that. And again, I want to kind of go back to the point of what's new in the future. I mean, spirulina in bread and nobody could smell it or taste it. As Isaac shared with us, it does have a scent at times. So to know that the Orlo Nutrition form is being put out there and they're not dealing with those issues is pretty great.
I mean, our first product in the space is our Immunity Boost, which is an oral spray. It's a low dose of spirulina, but bright, bright blue. I have been able to experiment in my kitchen with some of our pre-market stuff, including a bright blue concentrate of our Icelandic Ultra Spirulina that I even colored our frosting for cupcakes with for a kid's party. No odor, no taste, bright blue, incredible, right? So we have food applications that are coming. I can see partnerships in the future that mix our blue with a yogurt, for example, to make a fun yogurt for kids. But the things that are in the pipeline and that are coming soon are really in a snack bar so that we can benefit from the protein and the other nutrients. A gummy that leverages spirulina for brain health. And I don't want to get too specific on these things yet, but also a powdered product that we're making for women. And so this will be coming out in the near future, like mid to late spring. And these things will help to address many of the issues that we see with not enough protein or not reliable sources of protein, people wanting to go more plant-based, and also touching on those core nutrients that we all want to see, which is the iron and the vitamin B12 methylcobalamin. Doing so in a form where we are California Prop 65 compliant, because these are grown not in open ponds, so therefore not exposed to all sorts of toxins and not a source of lead, won't have to bear some crazy disclaimer saying that the product would be known to cause, fertility challenges or cause cancer in certain states. Right. So it can be safe, clean, pure for daily use, and really ultimately help people take charge of their health. So all of these things are coming over the next 6 months. We're very excited as a team. And we know that there could one day also be a bread with our spirulina in it broadly available.
I love it. It's going to be awesome. And truly, Orlo is the future of nutrition with the omega-3s and immune boosting micronutrients that provide all these benefits that we shared without damaging Earth's ecosystem so people and planet can thrive. That's orlonutrition.com, ORLO nutrition.com. And listeners can get 20% off using the code FOREVER. Again, this doesn't work on subscriptions. I just want to be very clear with that. But if you do want to try some of the products, you can use the code FOREVER for a 20% discount. We'll go ahead and we'll put that on our weekly highlight page for the next coming weeks. Just know to go to foreveryoungradio.com. Corinna, always a pleasure. I learned so much. Appreciate that we could spend this time together on the 500th episode. One more thing we need to celebrate is happy early birthday to Benedict. He is turning 9. Your wonderful son, one of your wonderful sons. Give him a hug for me.
Oh, I will. Thank you so much, Kelly. This has been awesome.
And if this is the first time you've heard our show, go and find other episodes we've done with Orlo Nutrition. We had Dr. William Leon. We had Dr. Sean Tesson. We've done some bang-up interviews with Orlo Nutrition over the last eight months. So make sure you go and check that out. Have a happy and healthy week. We'll catch you next time right here on Forever Young.